There's the red button. Okay. All right. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. May I have attention, please? All quiet, please. Thank you. Go ahead and have your notes out. We're going to get right into it. We're going to be finishing up the, which war? Indo-Pakistan Wars, right? Which we, and actually there's some stuff I wanted to reiterate with you. It's like, why do the Muslims and Hindus hate each other so much? I need to focus on some key elements prior to getting back into the notes on that. You guys okay? Are you? I'm so glad to be back in school physically. Are you a little tired? Does it help, like, I mean, did you feel like, what did you have, like a 5-day weekend or some weird thing like that? Were you working yesterday? Were you doing stuff? Or did you be like, I'm going to think about forming a procrastination club someday, but, I don't know. Maybe that'll happen. So in any event, in here, very important things for you, okay? Due dates. Let's talk about the one that's going to come up first for you. We're going to be wrapping up the notes on India-Pakistan wars and the Algerian War for independence. We're going to wrap those up, and we're going to have a 10-point quiz. Mary, you're listening? Yeah. 10-point quiz, and you got 2 different dates to choose from. Which is your date, Mary? Is it? Yes, it is a date with it's a date with a 10-point quiz. It's a date with, what is it, Tuesday the 15th of September or Wednesday the 16th of September? No. I need an answer. Which day are you going to take the quiz? Which is also the same answer to the question, which day are you actually physically back in school? That would be Tuesday. What would be the color indicator that might help you? Yes. Yes. And so far we don't have anybody that's colorblind blue-green. If they are, that's not fair. Sorry. You don't see a blue? It's like, what color is the dress? Is it yellow? I mean, that whole internet thing. It's this one. Really? Trenton, that doesn't look blue to you? Okay. So, shh, guys. Hello. Okay. Okay. You guys can't see this. Daniel barely has his mask on, hanging from one ear, trying to feel safe. Here's the other thing that's very important to you, for you guys, okay? Your revised IA is due to me on Thursday the 17th. So next week on Thursday, I need to have the revised IA. For some of you, you'll need to make some pretty good revisions. I alerted you guys all of this last spring. I sent a message on Google Classroom. I know you guys know how to access Google Classroom. And my message was, if you didn't do so great by your score on the first draft, that's an indicator, and I'll go through some samples of some things that tended to bring some of those first draft scores down, that you needed to be working on that over the summer, along with your extended essay, and whatever else you were doing over the summer. So, this is when I need that to me, and I'll look at it, and I'll evaluate, and look and go, you're up to snuff, and we'll set up a meeting for me to give you specific feedback on how to improve your IA, which will be due by the end of this calendar year. I think I'm going to have it due like right before Christmas.
So when we do I know you can only have one form when you are we still allowed to have some guidance after that? Or we have to do all of that?
Yeah, little picky thingies and so forth. I think hopefully we'll be able to cover all of that at the time. And these are like the IAA rules, or the rules for IA, history IA, that are given by IB. It actually works out quite a bit differently, because like sometimes for the extended essay, your mentors, oh my gosh, sometimes students will like tap their mentors for all kinds of information. And even then, IB doesn't want you to do that too much. Okay? Yeah?
Do you have like a grade from last year?
I do.
When you say something else together, do you
If you had a B or lower, then it was kind of like, and I think I only made like really obvious eye contact with some people in here. If I didn't make obvious eye contact with you, improve it. But you're going to have a meeting with me.
I don't know if I should get it right. That's all.
You. I will single you out among all of your peers. Since you asked, don't anybody else ask. Yours was okay.
You said okay.
Good enough to have a meeting. Okay? Listen to some of the advice and so forth that I'm going to be giving everybody. General advice, which I can do. And I did this with other groups in the past, giving general advice on things that can be improved. Stuff that we covered in the training, but then when I actually looked at the papers, I'm like, did they pay attention to the training? I'll cut you guys some slack. We were in quarantine. BSU library was gone. There was all kinds of other stresses going on. It's okay. The goal is to help get you to a good place by the end of this semester.
So like, when we turn in our final draft, and grade our ID models and all that stuff, are you gonna tell us what our ID grade for it was?
I generally don't.
Are you allowed to do that so that we can kind of have like a better idea of like?
I generally don't because some people like, I don't know, they just sort of get like all, and
like try and figure out exactly where to.
factors in. And typically when, and hopefully you guys will be doing essays in May, it's going to be one part of all these different kinds of things. If it's like it was last year, I can tell, you can tell by the grade I give you, if you get a real good grade on your final draft. And usually if you got a really good grade on your first draft, that's kind of an indication of where things are going, then you're going to be in like a good place. But no, I don't do that. And I think most of the IB teachers tend to not tell the students exactly, and particularly like predicted grade. I mean, what the heck? IB asks us to predict how you're going to do on essays. I can get a general sense, and I'm usually pretty close, and they like to take that into account. But I can give the actual grade to IB, and it actually corresponds very well. So if you're among the top 10% of my scores for the IB final draft, that grade's going to be submitted to them too.
I'm just curious, because I know like there are some colleges that when IB candidate they ask you for your interest in some of your IB scores, and so that's like
Really?
yeah. Like,
I don't remember providing that to colleges.
There's like I know NYU can do that in place like SAT like
And was this just last year because of the weirdness, or?
there's like some
Okay, well, that's kind of weird.
so I just wanted to-
Yeah. Yeah. No, I mean, if there's something that'll help you to get where you need to want to be as far as your college and so forth, I don't mind that. But just as a general rule, I don't. And I think most teachers don't. So anyway, get your revised draft to me. Printed copy, please. I just like that better. For those of the students at home, they're going to be submitting it to me, sending it via my email, which works out fine. Okay? Do you guys have any questions on that particular part? All right. Yes? Make it better. Now, let me give you some very specific things, because I've got a little note sheet of some stuff, and actually these are some of the things that I wrote in my Google Classroom message to all of you back in, I don't know, May or April. I think it was May. But it's a little bit more pressing now, because it's kind of like, I don't know, your drafts of extended essay and IAs and so forth, when they're like right there, then you really want to pay attention to them. So you ready? Listen up very carefully. These are the my general advice to all of you. And some of you, you'll hear it, and when you go through your own paper, you'll look at it and go, oh, that's also specific advice to me. Okay? It could be. But to a degree, even those of you guys who I had a lower bar to reach in order to get an A, say, on the first draft. And I think I even lowered it kind of a little bit more last time because of the challenges that people faced with everything going on and difficulty with resources. Okay? So, first of all, come see me, send me a message if you do not have access to or do not have available anymore the packet, the training packet I gave you. And I remember because when we got into doing the at-home stuff and during the quarantine and so forth, I think it was Julian who, because I printed it out and got it scanned. I love doing those technological things and so forth, but he beat me to the punch. And he actually scanned the copy that I had given him with all my little handwritten notes and so forth on the side, because those are very, very helpful. He had scanned that, and you guys are still, do you still have access to your old Google Classroom accounts? Because it's in there. If not, make sure you have that, because that's what you lean on in order to do it right. And also check out Jack, because I remember going through, because Jack had access to, you did a little research on your own, and you found lots of sample papers. Because I gave you guys one good sample paper to look at. And there are out there. So if you're really diligent and so forth, you can look at all kinds of various different things that are out there. And make sure it's the current format.
It's like, I just typed in like IB history teachers support materials, and they have like 5, and they explain
Yeah.
why they got like this bad
Yeah.
for this,
Yeah.
like ones that got 3, ones got 7.
Yeah. You found that pretty helpful? Yeah. In fact, and when teachers do training for IB, we get all these different, like, in the training itself, they're like, read this, and then we're like, it's like they're calibrating us, they're training us. So like, what is a 7? What is a 6? What is a whatever, the scale on the rubric, okay? So I'm trying to convey that to you guys. It does help to actually look at other samples. And one of the things I'm going to tell you at the end is take the time and have peer review. In fact, I'll tell you that right now. In past, we've had time to have students move around and get together, and it's like, I don't know how much the school really wants us to, like, are you getting close to each other, like for some of your group things and so forth? Is it pretty much no? It's pretty much keep a distance, and that's what I thought. So, I move around, and I try not to get too close, but you guys find somebody, share your IA with them, and ask them to give you feedback so that you can incorporate that feedback. How many of you guys have parents or other adult type people who are actually pretty good readers of your material that, okay? Mary, look around, steal somebody else's parents, okay? It's like, Anna's mom's like, why am I getting this email from Mary? It actually helps. Have other people look at it. At the very least, they can read it for readability, which is an important component for communication. It needs to be readable, okay? So before my due date, and anywhere along the way, have other people look at it, okay? Now, your peers are going to be good because they're all kind of in the same boat as far as what they're trying to accomplish. A really good history IA. There's not too many people out there that actually know what is required for those components. All right, here we go. So can you do that? In fact, raise your hand if you don't know who would be a person that you could do peer review with. Who would you do peer review with? Which one? Tara? Yeah. Peer review. You and another person. Who that other person maybe be? Okay, Jack's going to end up with a lot of people sending him papers. Jack, I'll do this. It's like tutoring and so forth. Daniel's like, yeah, I could do that. Charging something. Do it, okay? Do I need to stress that anymore? Okay, all right. Here's the next thing. I've got some other points. General comments about, and some people fell into this, definitely. For your paper, and some of you guys are going to hear this directly from me when I sit down with you, even if you don't have to make too many big changes right at this stage. Better research. Some of you guys were not able to find or didn't find really good research sources. Better than like encyclopedia.com type sources. Okay? And I'll give you the example. I remember there was one paper that was really good ultimately last year that I did. I can't remember if it was extended essay or history IA. And the student did a real nice job on it, but a lot of the sources were these sort of like soft sources like history.com, encyclopedia.com, The basics were there, and my direction to them were go out, find something more substantive, even if ultimately it ends up saying a lot of the same things you did on your initial one. Okay? Next one. I saw some formatting issues that people had. Thankfully, not too many of you guys did this. I did get a few, like just straight on essays. It was like an essay. I'm like, what the is going on here? It was not, this is not just an essay. It's got 3 separate component parts. And each of those component parts has an expectation as far as how many words are in it and what is in each of those different sections. You need to follow the guide. If you didn't follow the guide on that one, then it hurt you. If you did follow the guide very well, then it's like, yeah. I mean, you need to get the guide. If you're trying to do this without the guide, it's a mess. It's a train wreck. Okay? And just as a reminder, again, how many of you guys would say, writing my history IA was easier than writing my extended essay? Everyone should have their hand up. Because at the very least, it's shorter. Okay? The investigation part is shorter. I mean, it's like half as many words. The hard part, actually, for some of you guys is meeting it within the word count thing. Okay? All right, so that was something that I saw for some papers. Use the appropriate headings for each of the sections. Section 1 is called Identification and Evaluation of Sources. Don't come up with anything unique or creative as far as that section. Section 2 is called Investigation. Section 3 is called Reflection. Put the word count in there as well. I mean, all this stuff is things I've talked about before. The reason I'm saying it again is because it was missing in some of the papers. Okay? Questions about that? It's pretty straightforward. The next one has to do with the bibliography. Okay? Make sure your bibliography, your works cited section, is done properly. Even if you thought you did it correctly, sometimes students forget to alphabetize. It's like a common error. So go through and just make sure that the citations are alphabetized. You pick a format and stick with it and follow it the right way. How many of you guys went Chicago style with the footnotes? How many of you guys went MLA style or something like that? That was something, and a lot of you guys are used to doing that because I think you get kind of a head start on that in English. Just know, I'm repeating myself, if you're kind of hitting on the word count and you're getting close to going over, if you're using the MLA, just physically go in mentally and write down the number of words in your little parentheses things because they're not supposed to count toward the word count. The citation itself doesn't count toward the word count.
Not the part that says author or whatever, but the part the actual quote stuff.
The quote does count. Okay? It's just the parentheses part. That's why Chicago style works better, because when the program counts your words, it doesn't count what's in the footnotes. So, which is nice. I mean, that's probably the only really wonderful reason to use Chicago style, is that word count component. Okay? Here's another thing that I'm going to be mentioning to some of you guys, even if you did a pretty darn good job the first time. You really need to cite your sources extensively. Extensively, not just once at the end of some long paragraph and so forth. It's okay to cite the same source multiple times. Okay? And you get kind of a sense. It's like, extensively. We'll talk more specifically about it, but I mean, if I go through like 2 paragraphs and I don't see citations and like, I don't know where you got this from. I suspect you got it from someplace. Okay? And then the peer review. Questions? Those are the things that jumped out the most from papers, first draft IAs that were deficient. The other kinds of things, I'll look at them again after the 17th and 18th, and then I will make notations and I'll set up a time to have an after-school visit, or for the at-home ones, I'll do like a Zoom chat with those guys. And it's going to be a little crazy because with my juniors right now, did I tell you? They're doing their first draft this semester because I want them to have that out of the way. Would you guys have liked to have had the entire history IA already done by junior year? Well, I didn't think of that before. Okay, well, And I think you could. I think you could have. I mean, there's nothing so unique about the history IA that it can't be done first year. Some of your other IAs and other classes, you really do need to learn whatever you need to learn before you can get to it. So anyway, but you guys will be fine. By the time we get to end of December, you should be in good shape. Any questions? You guys feeling okay about it? How many of you guys are like, I hated doing the history IA back in March or April, but life is a little bit more workable now-ish, even if you can't necessarily get to BSU library, but okay, you've got time to make this better. All right, no more questions? Okay. I don't think so. Are any of the libraries open? What do you know? We switched, we did, that was in the news. And I would think because between me and Mrs. Rao with the extended essay, we really like the opportunity of getting students in like real research library facilities and so forth. So you be proactive, get Miss Rao being proactive, and as soon as we can find those things out, I don't know if we can get we probably don't have the budget to do it, but before we had like bus trips with students going to BSU, Mrs. Rao would just pick a day and go, okay, we're going to meet at BSU at such and such, and if we can, if we don't have that quarantine concern, I say let's do it. Yeah, that's true. I think it's a financial thing. Yeah, I think it's a financial thing because, like, I know I have to refill the the wipey things and so forth. It's almost done, and I'm like, I got the word that we're gonna. Yeah, it's expensive to like keep all the classrooms wiped down to the extent that we've been wiping them down already. I mean, it's been what, just over a week, hardly, and I've almost gone through an entire bucket of that. Yeah, those are alternatives. I think those work really well because they're handy. You just pull them up, wipe it down, and it's gone. With Clorox spray, you still have to have like a spray, and then you need a paper towel, so you still have the two different parts. So, okay. Questions? You feeling okay? It's like, yeah, it's senior year. I mean, which things are giving you the most concerns as far as like being able to move forward with it in a successful way? The EE. Now, what did I tell you about the E to just calm your nerves down a little bit? Well, keep working on it. Keep working on it. Keep working on it. Keep working on it. But as far as like, is it going to count in like some critical, like, you're going to pass it or fail it, as far as the IB diploma, it's not so bad. I mean, history tells us, I think it actually came up and was decisive maybe in one student over the last 2 years, all the different students who are going for the IB diploma. If you're going for not the IB diploma, you need to get it to the minimum level for high school graduation requirement parts, okay? I mean, you want to do well on it. And in fact, I mean, if you do well on it, you can look back and go, I don't know if you can recycle it at some college and so forth. I mean, as far as the ideas, they generally tend to ask you to come up with something fresh. But the experience itself is something very positive that you can tap into and know you can write papers when you go to college. Because are you going to be writing papers when you go to college? Like one a year? I mean, like maybe 2 or 3 a course per semester for some of your classes. So, I mean, it really is. That's why the IB program and the extended essay itself are really good preparation. So, raise your hand if you feel like you're doing okay so far in the extended essay. Raise your hand if you feel like you're doing okay so far in here. Okay. You doing okay so far in here? Sure. Are you concerned we're not going to get to everything that was required in previous years? Oh, wait a minute. We don't have to get to everything that was required in previous years. Yeah, the authoritarian part was taken away. Yes, because that just got a little bit too crazy. Okay, and you guys are pretty good as far as self-advocating and helping each other out and so forth. And you've got some good, strong, positive leaders in your class. I think we're going to be in a good way as we go through the year. Okay? All right, let's get to this. Indo-Pakistan War. Write this down. You ready? There was a lot of fighting between India and Pakistan, beginning in 1947, concluding in 49, and then it got started again in 65, and then it got started again in 71, and so we'll keep an eye on that. One thing I don't think I stressed enough last time, okay? Because it was like I said, okay, Britain just ups and leaves in 1947. I mean, literally, we'll see this again. Britain was in charge of Palestine, where Israel was created. And they're just like, oh my gosh, we got all kinds of different people that want this and this and this and this and this. We're out of here. And then so you immediately, like, what's going to happen when Israel is created? Is everyone happy with that, or their neighbors attack them? I think we covered that already, didn't we? I think we did. Did we? Yeah, it was Cold War Part 1. What happened to Israel and its Arab neighbors after Israel was created in 1947, 48? They got attacked. So, I mean, immediately there was a war. So, but Britain was no longer part of it. Is Britain going to be part of what happens in India and Pakistan afterwards?
Not so much. But here's an interesting
Question. And I don't think I really developed that so well. Raise your hand if you can answer the question. Why were the Muslims and Hindus so irritated with each other? So many of them, not all of them. I mean, Gandhi got along with Muslims and so forth. But why was there a concern about Muslims and Hindus living in the same country so that, you know, you look at these population things and we end up with a map that has Pakistan in the western part and the eastern part as one country, Muslim majority, and then India is a separate country. Why was it? Yeah. Yeah, I mean, there's differences, because I don't think I answered that question well enough. I mean, there are religious differences and so forth, but I mean, do you know people with very different religious beliefs than you? Do you get along with them? Do you feel like beating them up all the time? Have they ever repressed you? Have you ever repressed them? It's okay. You live in America. Mostly we kind of like get along, go along, and so forth. But there's some parts of the world that it wasn't that way. That was part of it. Let me go back to when the British took over that area, because I kind of left that part out. The British came in and took over the area in the 1700s, and they started even before then. What were the facts on the ground in India that allowed for Britain, an outside country, to come in and actually, make sure you write this down, get a fair amount of support from people living in India for the British to take over? What was going on? Well, I didn't really tell you as much. All I told you was that the last big invading force that conquered India was the Mughals, and their religion was Muslim, okay? And if you go to, viewers at home can't see this, I'm pointing out a picture. One of the greatest pieces of architecture in India is built by a Mughal ruler for his dead wife. It's the Taj Mahal. It's built in an Islamic style, and actually that ruler was fairly tolerant. Write it down. Some of the Mughal Muslim rulers were tolerant. They're like, whatever, you're Hindu, that's cool. But not all of them were, and that's the rub. Some of the rulers after the ruler that built the Taj Mahal, Islamic rulers, were not tolerant of the majority Hindu population belief system. And some of those Hindu temples got torn down, and a lot of resentment came from among Hindus living under Muslim rule. So, when the British started poking around and going, we'd kind of like to take this, that, and so forth, were they going to get some help, arguably, from local Hindus? So that those local Hindus would no longer be under the authority of the Mughals, the Muslims. And the answer is yes. Sometimes when people do bad things to other people, those stories get passed down to generation and generation and generation, and they cause problems among those people in history. And we're going to be talking about a number of those stories as we go through history. And it's very sad. I mean, you wish that people would just like, let it go. You know, agree to disagree. There's differences in variety. But some other times people will look and go, you're part of a group of people whose ancestors repressed my group of people ancestors. I hate you. You're like, what did I ever do? I'm just trying to eat lunch. You're like, messing with me. I'm like, what is the problem? I mean, can you imagine living as a white person in South Africa and people looking at you going, you're a repressive white person? Does it ever happen? No, good, that's good. Okay? But I mean, it's like, what's that? Your dad. Oh, bricks thrown at him. So there is an example. Did your dad do anything to deserve having bricks thrown at him? I don't think so. I don't think so. I doubt it. Because your dad's a very nice man. But I mean, so here's the deal. The British, it helped them to gain control over India that the Muslim rulers had been repressive. The latest Muslim rulers have been repressive of the Hindu population. And so when Britain's getting ready to leave, you have all these questions coming up. What is it going to be like? Gandhi says it's going to be okay. Nehru's like, oh, the Hindus will be nice. Jinnah, leader of the Muslim League, works with Gandhi and Nehru for independence, but as far as the details, he's like, man, my people, the Muslims, want to be the majority in the geographic country that they live in. You're going to have to separate them out. And so that's what they did. But here's the problem, all right? Let's remind ourselves. Here's the problem. Well, actually, if you go back to here, if you're a Muslim living in majority Hindu India, and now it's going to be democracy. You can write that down. India is a democracy. Pakistan, sort of democracy for a while. It kind of comes and goes at times. Are you going to be, do you feel safe to live there? All of you, Muslims living in India, are you going to stay? How many of you guys will leave? Where will you go? Probably you go to Pakistan. You write that down. There were a lot of people who were migrating over a very short period of time to areas where their religion was in the majority. Not everybody, but a lot of people. Were these people wealthy and they could go and like in comfort? No. I mean, they're going through hardship. And they're also crossing people who are going the other direction. So you've got some Hindu population in the like the Bengal area or in what it became West Pakistan. They're also moving. And you're going to get tension and difficulty. Oh, and of course then there's officially a war going on, which makes it even worse. Put this down.